All right. So next head to head here, we have D365, Microsoft Dynamics 365, Business Central, that's
Mhm.
important, versus UKG. So these are two, again, kind of all encompassing systems. Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, it is kind of a business management. It integrates with a lot of different functions, operations, sales, customer service. It's great for medium to small businesses. UKG has been known to specialize in human capital management and workforce management specifically, but it offers a lot of really comprehensive functions across the business too. Very well known in the public sector as well. UKG of managing a lot of different things when it comes to like citizen engagement and those types of needs and services. So I think functionality, we know that D365, and correct me if I'm wrong, is really more comprehensive than
Oh,
UKG. It just is. UKG, on the other hand, you are looking at, a small fish in a big pond when it comes to Microsoft. UKG is very partner focused. I know a lot of them personally. They very much are focused on their client services and believe in that type of mission. So, definitely a different kind of experience. We all know that Microsoft, the VAR community, can be very, very challenging when it comes to implementation. So definitely two different options there. Anything to add to those key differences?
I think with Business Central, you see it popping up a lot more in the SMB world, but again, it goes back to the partner
Yeah.
issue. Also, it can be extremely difficult to find a Microsoft partner that it can be present enough to want to take the job and implement the software. And I think people too, they think that when they buy Business Central, they're just paying for a user license, similar to, hey, I'm going to get a Office 365 license and it costs me, $12 a month. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
probably what Business Central is. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's part of the overall price, but that's not how their pricing structure works. I actually had somebody say that. They're like, this is a really cheap solution. It's probably gonna cost me $120 a month. And I'm like, no, I really
No,
don't think
who
so.
told you that?
Exactly. And I think the one thing that people do like about BC is it has the Microsoft look and flow. And so when you do get into the solution, there's familiarity if you use their products on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Yep, definitely. So which one are you going to go with?
I think we'd have to do just Microsoft so that we have,
Yeah.
unless we want to take two HCMs against each other, we could do that because UKG is a lot of that. It does a lot with
Yeah.
they were known with Kronos before
Yeah.
UKG merged, and
Well,
so
let's let this question kind of battle it out for you here. So, do you think that Microsoft is investing enough in BC Business Central for them to beat out UKG, who
hmm,
is part of a big acquisition
right.
too of a lot of different systems?
And UKG has put so much into what they're doing. I see it a lot more, even at clients' offices. When you
Mhm.
kind of walk around, you're like, "Oh, here's your time clock that
Mhm.
people are
Yeah,
using
they
UKG to
really do
put in,"
care. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
it's a phenomenal solution. And I've used it, especially if you have 200-300 employees.
Mhm.
Works really really well. Microsoft Business Central, I know they want to keep this, but are they putting more money and investing in those larger the F&O software that they have for the
Mhm.
major companies? Good question. Maybe let's go with UKG because I would like to take UKG up against Workday.
Yeah, yeah.
Really.
Oh man, we might have to get them both on the phone. But again, like in my first thought is like if we got both those vendors on the phone, Workday would not talk to us. UKG would absolutely talk to us. So like
Mhm.
you have to take those things into consideration. That doesn't mean you should choose your best friend system. That just means that you should take into consideration which one am I going to be able to work with and then bring, someone in like Christy that's able to help you navigate all of those different relationships because that's just the vendor, right? Then you have the system integrator and you have your third party integrations. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to selecting a new ERP software. Cool. Okay. So down to Odoo versus Infor. Again, very interesting matchup here. Odoo has a bit of a cult following, and
Mhm.
Infor is really a great product as well. So Odoo is kind of the king of open source ERP. It offers a variety of business applications, really great technology, as long as you're able to handle an open source ERP system. And that is a big question. It is not just a plug and play. It can be more affordable, but it also, your IT team needs to know how to handle that and maintain it. Infor Cloud Suite is really kind of looking at a lot of manufacturing distribution, but a very good, robust functionality, advanced planning, scheduling. They're known for that in the industry. They're always on kind of MES shortlist. They are known for kind of similar to an IFS function, but they are a great all around ERP. They don't, neither has an industry focus. For functionality, you're kind of going against flexibility and sophistication in these two. Odoo is incredibly flexible. It's definitely more affordable if you can manage it in the right way. But Infor is really all you need. It is all you need, and that's a plug. You're going to buy it and you're going to keep it, right, for
Mhm.
that amount of time. Also, both I think have a great partner network, in my opinion, that really help their clients through this. So this one is definitely different. It's one of those where it's like, oh, it so depends on what you need. But definitely a different matchup here. So, what are your thoughts on the kind of those key differences?
So I think with Odoo, something that's unique is it's highly, highly customizable. If you have your own IT team,
Mhm.
you can basically build out this solution to make it whatever you want. You can, the go and flow with how that is, which keeps the cost down really cheap compared to when you're looking at a different type of an ERP solution. They also sell bulks of hours where they will, configure and implement and get it set up for you. And so that's one thing that's really unique about it. And you've seen too over the last couple of years how much advertising they're even putting out. I know going to different airports and things, I see a lot of their
Oh, yeah.
ads all around. And then you look at something like an Infor, which is great, like you said, manufacturing distribution. It's been around for a long time. It's a great scalable solution that for the small business world to start out on their site line, which is their cloud suite line, you can get up to over or close to $1 billion before you're really outgrowing the
Yeah.
solution in a lot of ways. And that's something you want to look at where I'm not having to change, a solution up couple years in
Mhm.
because oh gosh, we hit a growth spurt and we weren't planning for it. And so that's something I really do appreciate about Infor. I do like their planning. I do like a lot of the functionality that they have to offer, especially when it comes to being on the floor and managing your operations.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely two considerations. Odoo, purple, flashy branding, very cool. Definitely the cool kid in the ERP circle, and Infor is just not. It's kind of not as cool of a brand. Great system, great
Yes.
people that work there, excellent options. It's just not as flashy as Odoo in the marketplace, nor is it as flexible. You absolutely can build completely your own system, exactly what you need on Odoo. Infor is that's not quite the same, though there is flexibility to, of course, what package. So Adam asked, do you need a bigger IT team to implement Odoo or Infor?
Odoo for sure because there's so much management for it.
Mhm.
The IT side of things for Infor, I have companies that have 1 to 3 people max that are just managing, and that's where they're handling the reports. They may be changing up the user licenses, building different roles out, and working with the implementation team to do some minor type of work because more than likely you'll have an ongoing maintenance contract with the Infor team and they're in the background really taking care of those things for you, which makes it easier for small businesses when you have limited to no IT team at all.
Mhm. Yeah. definitely a consideration, and a lot of things that we see clients get stuck on with those open source systems. They kind of get engaged in like, this is the new frontier of ERP. There's a lot of, AI talk, and you can go in and you can really pick and choose a la carte ERP system, but you have to remember this is still the core of your system. So not only are you responsible for managing it, you're responsible for teaching everyone in the organization how to effectively do that. And that doesn't happen just at implementation, right?
No,
That's
it
an
not at all.
ongoing journey that you have to be able to know that, hey, I have the team and the time to invest in. So
Yeah.
definitely good things to think about there. Which one is it, Christine?
Mhm. This
Infor.
one to me is going to be an easy one. It would be Infor, just because for the SMB world, Odoo that's really difficult and puts a lot of stress
Mhm.
on a new business to be able to manage all the ins and outs of being the IT manager.
Very cool. Awesome. Okay, this round goes to Infor. So last but certainly not least on our head-to-head, we have Epicor versus CISPro. So definitely kind of another one that is good but different, right? And looking at these two. So Epicor is honestly very similar to M4. There are a lot of, involved in the same conversations. But it again is very strong ERP solution, mid tier 2 solution, even going into the tier 1 area, but used by a lot of very sophisticated businesses. It's really known for its distribution, manufacturing, comprehensive supply chain. You can see every layer of your production with Epicor. It's just a great choice to have on your short list, especially if you have Infor on there. It kind of depends on the business, which one is the best match and which team is supporting you
Yeah.
is the best culture fit between the two. And CISPro, that's it's not involved in a lot of ERP conversations because it's definitely more focused on like the inventory management, the production, the financials, manufacturing, distribution. So if you were a very heavy manufacturing or inventory business, you might look at these two head to head, but they're not always involved in the same conversation. So when we look at those key differences, they both have very much presence in the manufacturing and space. However, Epicor is noted to be kind of more of a holistic type of
Yep.
system. And then also, CISPro, I should say, it really is involved in a lot of integrations as well. But again, we kind of touched on the challenge of an integration type approach when it comes to a core ERP system. So, what are your thoughts on kind of those key differences that I noted?
Yeah, I would say that. I hear that a lot with CISPro, just around the inventory management side of things. That's usually what people come to the table with when I chat with them is, oh, we know this does ERP or the inventory management side of things really, really well. Then when you have conversations with folks that are, have questions about Epicor, it's, hey, we have a complex, bill of materials, and we need to be able to manage and track all along the way what is true WIP and look at the MES and what's it called? Epicor does a really, really good job
Mhm.
of managing all of that's out in the field. I think it does manufacturing really, really well. I hear conflicting things sometimes around the planning part of just,
Mhm.
is it easier to use than other solutions out there? But usually when it comes to the floor, you hear it's like nonstop, really good
Mhm.
reviews around it, especially the Epicor Kinetic version, which is their
Mhm.
cloud version, the newer version.
Mhm.
Folks that sometimes still use the older on-prem versions, the BizTracks and all of that,
Mhm.
they don't love life as much right now because of just limitations of being on-prem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll find that with a lot of on-prem services, although the cloud is not always the solution. And
Mhm.
that's a huge myth in the industry is, the cloud is better, the cloud is cheaper. That is not always true. So definitely a consideration. We have a question here. Does CISPro have a big enough base to make them actually competitive against Epicor?
I think you see them, but you don't see them at the same time. One of those things, they're not doing the branding. I don't see them at different events or whatnot. It's more so when I hear about CISPro, it's a client that has done some research and has
Mhm.
found them. When I'm looking at solutions to find the best ERP for a client, it's not normally one that I see gets pulled into it,
Mhm.
just because the functionality
Mhm.
isn't there a lot of times. Again, you're like, it's great if it has inventory management and that's what you're
Mhm.
known for, fantastic. But I need some other things in there that these other solutions have that CISPro just isn't there yet.
Yeah, yeah. I would say when I'm looking at CISPro, I put it more in like the best of breed category for a specific client that needs a very heavy inventory management piece. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, CISPro. But again, I don't think we've ever, and maybe you have, Christy, when we're not hanging out at conferences together. But I've never met someone from CISPro. I've
Me
never
either.
even like talked to someone, or someone's never come up to me and be like, hey, can we talk? So I think they don't have a huge presence, but are very good at doing some things really well. And that if you want to take a best of breed approach, or even if you have an ERP, a core ERP, and you want to look at something that's more sophisticated in inventory management, we just don't see a lot of SMBs there yet, right? To
Right.
have like that type of need for that functionality. So I think we kind of answered our own question,
We
but
did.
who is the winner?
I would say Epicor.
Awesome. All right. So, my friends, we've got 5 minutes left in this conversation. Definitely drop in your last questions or thoughts. So, next week, same time, same place. We drop the link on LinkedIn. We will go through round two. So, we will do, let me see if I can do this. We will do NetSuite versus Shopify. We will do Sage versus QuickBooks. We will do Workday versus UKG, which is probably the biggest, head to head there. And then we will do Infor versus Epicor, which also is a huge head to
Also,
head.
yep.
Yeah. So, and then the next week we will do the final rounds and crown the champion that we think that you should choose or at least have on your short list. If you have questions about like, hey, I saw this conversation, I have certain functionalities that I need for my SMB, I, would definitely encourage you to DM Christy. I know she's very active on LinkedIn, or comment on this. She can always go back in and answer these questions. But it really truly depends on what you need as far as a business case and your budget. SMBs have, huge budget constraints, rightfully so. This is a huge purchase. So you need to really consider what you're looking at, and what you can afford in that type of conversation. So, any closing thoughts, recommendations overall when looking at these different systems, Christy?
Nope. I think we highlighted all the major things that if you're an SMB and kind of just questioning and wanting to know more, I think this is a good comprehensive short way to highlight all of them and let you know more.
Absolutely. And this is a good question to kind of end on. When do you know you're ready to move to one of these versus something larger? And maybe like kind of revising the question, how do you know when you're really ready for an ERP system as an SMB?
I think the biggest thing is normally you're on a QuickBooks or a Zero, something like that, or Excel spreadsheets, and you know that you can't get a good health check of how your business is doing. You
Hmm.
don't have good reporting. You don't know what true costs are because you don't have cost accounting. You
Hmm.
don't have a way to manage comprehensive bill of materials when you're
Hmm.
manufacturing things. And those are usually those key points to say, hey, I need to get off this tier 4 type of software that
Yeah.
I'm using. But then you can also look at it to maybe you have an older version of an ERP solution because you moved to that. Maybe you're on an old Sage or an old Epicor, and it just doesn't have the newer technology that some of the solutions have today. And if you do a true evaluation and see, hey, I know if I have these new data points in here that I can measure, I see that I can get an ROI by investing in a newer solution, and I know it will add extended value to the organization, then I think it starts making sense to have that conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you have a video on this, right?
Yes.
On your YouTube channel. So if you, and specifically for QuickBooks too, like if you are QuickBooks, I know she does a great series of like when you know you graduated from QuickBooks, and then also, how there's like red flags that are going on in the organization. Your people hate you. You can't
Yep,
do
all the
all
things.
these different things. And then how to really kind of understand the ERP conversation, which is half the battle. A lot of times, especially as a founder or something like that, you're like, this is not my wheelhouse, man.
Yeah.
It's just it's just definitely something that you need help to have that conversation. Anybody does,
Yep.
to really understand their requirements, how it works, and how they're looking at the future of technology, especially enterprise technology, because that is something that is really evolving, especially right now.
hmm It is.
Well, thank you so much, Christy, for taking us through this. This has been a really fun
It's been
conversation.
fun.
We're excited. We're taking votes for the next winners. If you want to vote on that head-to-head comparison, we'll be back next week to kind of have that next level conversation. Thank you all for your great comments and questions. Definitely, it's so fun when you guys engage in the conversation. So, with that, we will see you next week. And thank you so much to you, Christy.